It has been estimated that there are a minimum of 25,000 families in this country where marital violence occurs regularly. This figure is unofficial, as there is as yet no government department providing care for battered wives. In 1971, a voluntary community was set up to provide such care. Since then, more than 7,000 women and their children have sought refuge in this community alone.
He just seemed to, his eyes went very, very cold, very starey, you know, as though he was completely mad. And his arms would go up and he'd just walk around screeching, growling like a lion, and then he'd just go berserk. He strangled me once. He had me over the arm of a settee, and all I could remember in the end was all this blood, thick, slimy blood, all coming out my mouth, and I'd messed myself at the same time. And that was when he knew, he said he knew then that I was on the line between life and death. I used to sit and think, what have I done, you know, where have I gone wrong? But then I fell for the second child. It was just 11 months between them. And I thought, well, being pregnant, where could I go with two? You know, one on the way and one in my arms. I wouldn't go to my parents. I wouldn't go to any of my family, because he'd only come and smash them up. And it's not fair to them. It wasn't till I had the fourth one that I tried to get somewhere, but I couldn't get any help. I was told they'd put the children in care and me in a hostel, but that was no good to me. I wanted the children with me. He came home one day and he gave me an iodine and he cut me right across here with a carving knife. I had to wait until he collapsed and fell asleep, you know, before I could go to the hospital. And when I got there, I had 10 stitches. And the hospital automatically called the police because it's a knife wound. The police come, they asked me what happens. I told them that he'd done it with a carving knife. And they told me it was grievous bodily harm. And I said, I know that. So they went round my place, they nicked him. They held him over till the Monday. He went into court Monday morning. And he stood in there and he cried. And he told them how sorry he was. That he'd had too much to drink and he lost his temper. So they let him out. Bound over to keep the peace. It makes no difference, you know. I mean, on the following day, the Tuesday, I got the biggest iodine I'd ever had for nicking him.
In the survey that I did on battered wives, I defined a battered wife as any woman who had received deliberate, severe and repeated demonstrable physical injury from her marital partner.
This survey was based on interviews with 100 women, mostly at Chiswick Women's Aid.
The most common was where the woman had a periorbital hematoma, even with a subconjunctival hemorrhage, that is bleeding under the conjunctiva, usually as a result of repeated blows with a fist. Sometimes the swelling and bruising could extend over the malar region or over the cheek, and it generally indicated that they had been hit in the face by a weapon or they'd even been kicked. You could virtually have bruising on any part of the body and you can almost have any type of injury. The bruising that you can see can be of two types. There can be the deep, heavy bruising, which is generally due to a heavy blow, and the lighter bruising, which is generally due to gripping.
This woman was kicked and punched in the face, the arms, and the small of her back. She was also thrown across the room. These lacerations were caused by this woman being dragged across a wooden floor by her feet. She also has 6 broken ribs and first-degree burns caused by a pan of boiling water poured over her lap. This little boy's hair fell out. Doctors say the probable cause was a nervous condition due to witnessing and experiencing the violence of his stepfather.
He came home from work and he gave me a right pasting. And the kids came in and he made the kids go back downstairs to play on the grass. And he still carried on beating me. And then he went out and called the kids up. And the kids had knew what had happened, you know. Then he got ready, he went back out to the pub. And I just sat there and I said to the kids, do you want to go somewhere else? And they said, where? And I said, I don't know. I said, all I've got is a telephone number. You know, I said, but if we go out, we never ever come back. And they just got their coats. Mark was out on our back balcony watching him go up the road. Me and Kim just grabbed a coat. We only had slippers on and we knew which pub he'd gone to because he'd gone up the road. And then we just ran. And I called the first bus that came along, I called, and it took me to Clapham Junction. And then I got to a phone box and I phoned Chiswick, and they told me to just get in a cab and come straight over. And that's what we done.
Number 2 Belmont Terrace, a short-life property, was leased to Chiswick Women's Aid by Hounslow Council as a community centre for women. The women did most of the decorating themselves. Erin Pitsey, who started the centre, had originally seen it just as a place where women could come to sit and chat. One room was used as a playgroup, another served as a discussion place, where the women could sit and talk over their problems.
And then it was at that time when this woman came in and just took her jersey off and showed us these appalling bruises, and her breasts were just like sort of bowls of blue jelly, and said that her husband had beaten her very badly and no one would help her. And she was standing in front of me and I knew what she meant, and it was very shattering for me because I'd believed that I was an isolated person within my own childhood experience, and that there was help and provision because I'd believed in the social services and all the various other institutions. So when she said nobody will help me, I knew what she meant, and I said, you'd better stay. And she stayed. As the word spread locally, women started to come in. They just came to the doorstep with their children and said, please let me in, no one will help. And began to build up this dossier of terrible, relentless uncaring on the part of all the services in the country. Nobody seemed to be doing anything constructive to help. They just seemed to be sending these women back to the men who beat them, and some back to be killed.
The open door policy of Chiswick Women's Aid meant that on average some 40 women and children were staying in the 4-roomed house at any one time. After 18 months, the house was due for demolition.
When I first went into Chiswick, I think I sat for nearly a fortnight just in the office, never moved. I never moved. I was too scared, you know, thinking every time there's a knock on the door.
This is a new mother. Would you like a cup of tea? She's come all the way from Greenwich. Yes. Do you want a cup of tea? Do you want some squash, darling? From Greenwich. Do you want some squash? Give the baby a drink. You are, darling. Do you want tea or coffee, love? What's your name?
When a woman gets to Chiswick, and she comes through that door and she bursts into tears and she feels she's safe, then her violent husband, if she's made the decision not to go back, really becomes irrelevant, because you're left then with a very badly damaged woman and very disturbed children, and it's really the beginning of the work. And the first few days, the most vital moment is when she comes through that door, and she must then feel, as people move towards her, that these are people who are going to be with her, stay with her, until she's finally resolved herself.
Do you have a drink?
You was welcome, because there was somebody waiting on the doorstep for me when I got there. I was taken in, somebody gave me tea, they gave the kids tea, and I started to cry, and there was somebody there who would put their arm around you.
The crisis refuge is always kept in a state of crisis. In fact, this is the very strange thing that one realised very quickly. In the early days in Belmont Terrace, when there were only 4 rooms and an outside lavatory, it was amazing that in those 4 rooms we had something like 40 mothers and children sleeping on those mattresses on the floor. And the mothers seemed to come and to stay and not to go home. Now, everybody else's experience had been that they'd got women out of violent relationships, resettled them into these nice flats or perhaps bed and breakfast, and the mothers were going home. What was it about us that kept the women? Well, the first thing, of course, was that many women together created a feeling of safety. Once the woman began to feel that she was safe and defended, she actually began to be able to think constructively about what she wanted to do next. So the first thing was the packed feeling of safety and the strength of the numbers. Then, because she had no private room to retire to, and one must understand that if you come from a violent family, you're liable to be very lonely and isolated, because within your own family, because your husband is aggressive, an unpleasant human being usually, in his aggression, nobody visits your house. The children have no friends that come to the house. So the woman slowly gets very cut off from her family, any other kind of relationship, because he can't tolerate her having relationships. And when she first comes to Women's Aid, and she sleeps in a room surrounded by other people, and she is forced into relationships, she begins to build warm relationships with other women and the children.
There you are. Home sweet home. Okay. Now, this is a cupboard for you, for your clothes, in here. Keep it tidy. There. And this is where you're going to sleep. Now, I'm going to have to get you another pillow, because you will sleep at this end, and Laurie's sleep at the other, and if you like, or you can sleep together, and you can put the baby in this cot here.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Is that going to be nice? You can see Mummy here, can't you?
I'll sleep there.
Yes, now, look, we don't have many rules in the house, but we have no drink. We don't have drink in the house for obvious reasons. No violence, so if a woman really makes you cross and you feel any friction, then find somebody to talk it over with. Come and find me or Erin. There's always somebody around, and talk about it. And no men. We don't have men in the house. There's lots and lots of play staff that are men, lots of builders, lots of men in and out, but boyfriends or obviously husbands, we don't have them because we obviously have to think of the children.
It became very apparent that a woman needs, for a period of time, to be emotionally totally supported until she slowly begins to wean herself off the relationship she's left outside that door. So the chaos is very important. You're replacing one sense of crisis, which is the violent, turbulent, anarchistic home, with a similar form of excitement, but a much more constructive one.
When a woman first comes to Chiswick, she may be surprised to learn that she has to sleep on a mattress on the floor. But with usually more than 90 women and children in the house, this is often necessary.
She will have come in that front door, usually with just to carry a bag, sometimes in slippers, sometimes the kids have got no coats on, so they just walk in as they are. If a woman, and on one occasion, came with everything, including her double bed, then I'm very suspicious, because if she says she's running for her life, you very rarely have time to collect all your gear like that.
Oh, on the chair.
Now, who's on kitchen duty here? Wednesday morning. Renee, Margaret, the new mother.
The Department of Health and Social Security gives the community £2,000 per month, which goes towards the staff salaries. £5 per week is also granted per family for rent. This helps towards the heating, lighting and other expenses and the food provided by the community for the children. Chiswick Women's Aid had been given an urban aid grant of £10,000 per annum, but this was withdrawn at Christmas 1975 due to the overcrowding.
When a woman comes in and you begin to go through her history with her, you can tell fairly quickly what's going to be needed. A woman who comes in with her children into that very crowded little office, and the children immediately disappear off into the garden. You know one thing's very sure, that she hasn't got a very close relationship with them, if any at all. Because in that great big packed house full of strange faces, if they don't feel the need to cling to her, then they've obviously cut off from her a very long time ago. If you see that she's come from a violent home herself, as well as marrying a violent man, you've got double damage to deal with. If you see very often that in her own violent family situation, she was taken into care very early, then the chances are that she's learned nothing about mothering, and you're going to have to start at the very beginning, maybe teaching her to bath herself, let alone bath her children. Some women are so broken down by the time they get to us that it's very hard for them to even organize a meal for their children, let alone getting up on time to get the children to school. And that's going to be a very long process on the way back.
Look! Joe, now look, I was tired out last night, so I went to bed and I forgot about this painting, right? And she's moaning because I have to be up at that hospital this morning. Now you know I've got to get up.
She's got to go to the
I'm
hospital.
crying out my life for so don't you bloody start.
Yes. Keep calm. No. What's the matter? Keep calm. Renee. She really is. So why should I have been told? Always ask, never jump to conclusions. I didn't jump to any conclusion. She just jumped. Now how tense she is all the time. I don't know. You do know. Gosh, you've lived in this house long enough. How do I know that she's very under tension? I'm also under tension, aren't I? Well, we all are, but she is particularly so because she's not well. She really isn't well. I didn't know that.
Jojo's an absolute linchpin of the house. She's a very particular kind of person. It took me a long time to find somebody like that, because she's a dynamo. And part of what she does, which is so valuable, is that she creates. And there's terrific energy in the house. I mean, she runs around, as you know, like a lunatic, and it's that energy that keeps the house going. You couldn't have a quiet, gentle house mother. If you did, it wouldn't work. She's able to bully, she's able to shriek, she's able to cuddle people, she's able to play games. She's, if you like, the sort of central storm in the chaos. But in the middle of that storm, there's a sort of eye of quiet.
We had to have it plastered. We had it plastered. And now we're ready to pay for it.
No, but I thought she had the bloody paint. I didn't know she had the paint, right?
Yeah, she has.
And then all of a sudden,
she
told me she'd had it for a week.
I know, but we couldn't do very much because of the plastering. Now that's done, we're going to reline the walls, and then we're going to start painting today. Well, we've got Heather taking your place, okay, darling? Don't worry about it.
I'd have done it today, but
I know
I got
you
to the hospital. I mean, that's worrying enough as it is.
Come on, Alex. Come on, my darling. Hurry up. The school children. There we are.
That's it, now you can get there.
You've got the two new girls.
Look at that. You washed that this morning. I washed. Is that on the paper with those dishes that was washed? I did.
Excuse me. Jill. Jill Simpson. Oh, she's doing her bedroom. Fernanda Cornelius. She has left us, but I do have her forwarding address. Mary McDowell. Jackie Evans.
The house really begins moving at about 10 o'clock when we bring the post from the post office, and we open the post in the community room. Children will have gone down to play school because they leave at 10 to go down the road, and then there's the cleaning up to do to get the final scrub through for the morning, and then we open the post. That's the beginning of the day. Then when the post is opened, we talk about the bank account, our overdrafts, what we're planning to do, what's happening to Women's Aid itself, what's happening to individuals. And then after the house meeting, the business of the day, which is people going to solicitors with each other, social security with each other, various plans that other people want to put through. It unfolds through the day.
I want to sit down.
Sit down, you're joking.
Now that's for... That's the
morning's
staff
lunch,
lounge.
right?
This is for the children's lunch. I'm paying for the chicken when he delivers it.
Yeah.
So you just need vegetables. So if I give you £5, we have plenty of potatoes because I bought a sack yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay?
After a woman has been in the community for a few days, and provided she feels up to it, she's expected to join the rota system and help with domestic chores. She may also accompany other women to the social services, the solicitors and the law courts. Apart from giving each other moral support, all this helps them not to become isolated in their own depressions and problems.
I think the very early learning experiences with the first few mothers who came in, who got out of one violent relationship and seemed to be settling, and then would go out and recreate a violent situation with a new man and would come back bruised, began to make me realize that for some percentage of women, certainly not all of our women, I would say a third, where they were coming from violent homes themselves, they were attracted towards violence. Their pleasure and their pain seemed to be getting very confused. And at the time when she was being beaten, in fact, she was satisfying a need in herself, although it hurt very badly afterwards. And she would look and seek for more violence. And that was a very big learning experience, because I had completely rejected the provocation theory, partly because I was so frightened of the prejudice that existed within the society that actually tainted all women with the need to be beaten. Those battered children grow up to batter, that's what I learnt, whether it be a man or a woman. And I now know that if a woman comes in with a history of violence in her own childhood, the chances are she will be probably violent to her children, and she will want to live on this knife edge of crisis and danger. And she has to learn about herself and why she needs those forms of danger. With somebody who has learned it themselves, they will often look for someone they can push and push and push, hoping that that person will eventually explode and hit them. Well, that's I've experienced that, you know. Well, I don't think it's is violent at all.
I say that, Erin, I don't see her violent at all.
Who?
No, she is not violent. She has been very upset this morning, and that's probably why she's fallen to
You say she's not violent, like you say about yourself. You say that you're not violent.
I don't think she's violent.
But you are. I mean, because you're thinking really of real violence as actually hitting people and stabbing them, don't you? But there's levels of violence, isn't there?
I deny the fact that I'm violent.
Well, I'm violent.
So am I.
You know, I'm very violent. Well,
And yet-
verbally, and you know, I could quite easily hit somebody. You know, very, very easily. And I've had an argument with Angela. You know, where because of the rule of no hitting in the house, I threatened to take her outside and hit her.
Decisions in the House are made by the group at the House meetings. The House itself has the power to vote anybody out it likes, for various reasons. It has to be unanimous if they're going to vote somebody out, and the only times it's ever happened, that's 3 times in our history, was with a persistently violent woman. They can also vote the staff out. Fortunately, that hasn't happened yet, but they do have the right. Chiswick is an open community. That doesn't mean it's just open to the press. It's open to anybody who wants to come and visit and talk and share experiences. In fact, the visitors are the lifeblood of the community. And the women within the community, if they don't wish to be photographed or interviewed, aren't. But many of the women begin very quickly, once they get on their feet, to feel that they're not just there for their own problem, but they're the forerunners for the next generation of women, and that it's part of their policy, as well as it is mine, to explain why this has happened to them.
Yeah, but I mean, from the very beginning when you came here, you seem to be very much on your own. I mean, is she very different when I'm not here to everybody?
She's very withdrawn from people, I find.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably what part of it is, that I suppose everybody's been driven here by fear. They've had to get here because they've got nowhere else to go and they're afraid of getting killed. You've come here in a very different way because you didn't have to run for your life. You chose to come here, really, didn't you? So in a way, it's very different for her than it is to everybody else here, isn't it?
In the very beginning, I think I was very frightened of the violence of the men. And slowly, and this is why we didn't have men coming in, but slowly I realized, as the men did turn up and weren't violent towards us, that in fact they had their needs as well and could be controlled and helped not to act violently in our house. And also I saw the need for the children to have good, gentle men around. So the first salaries that were paid were to men to work within the community.
Stop showing up all the time. We'll get you one crate. Well, then you lose them. We had crayons out early, didn't we? Well, let's get you some milk. Now, shush, man. We're going to have some milk soon. You want to go over there?
Well, the play school is in a big old church, and of the 6 playgroup leaders, 5 are men.
Won't come down there, will she? It's too late.
Oh, no, don't worry about it. It's all right. It happens every day. Don't worry.
This is very important for the children, who for the first time in their lives experience a man who's totally different to the father. He's kind and gentle, he can feed a child, clean child up, cook, look after children, and it's a great shock for the boys because their initial reaction to a gentle man is to try and provoke him and provoke and provoke and provoke, because if they can get an explosion out of that man, it'll merely reinforce what they know already, and that is that men are violent. In fact, none of the playgroup staff are ever allowed to hit or smack a child. There is no violence at all from the staff towards the children. The way back for the children is loving, and this is one of the responses. The men are very able to cuddle, and it's amazing to see quite grown-up boys regress back into being stroked and cuddled by men and by the female staff. And if they're building up into an explosion, the staff will hold them until the explosion's over. However difficult it is, your shins can get kicked in, but you just hang on until the child regains control. And then the child discovers that he can afford to explode, and the whole world doesn't go up with him. There are people who are there who are strong enough and loving enough to cope with him, however violent he is. And then from that moment on, you find the beginning of the child being able to hang on to himself.
Pull your sleeves up a bit. When you roll on that piece. You want to roll that piece out? Get the hair out there. You roll that piece. It's nice, isn't it? It's nice. It looks nice. Oh yes, it's a good idea. Can I have one as well? Can I have one as well?
How many sugars?
No sugars, no. You want to go together? Do you think it needs more milk?
No.
I don't think yours needs... I think yours is all right, love. I don't think it needs more milk. You sure this doesn't need more milk? You want to make one, Ivan? All right. Get down. Good boy. Right, now, here's a toilet bag for you. Find this sock and put it over the top, all right? Right, let's have a look at it. Come here. Put it first. Oh, no. Can you lift your hand? Yeah. You got it on your vest now. Let's change the vest. Find you a new vest. You better find your new everything. Yeah, you want... Let's go and find your vest. Right, put this on you? Yeah. And, pants. Well, I think we can rig up some pants. Here's socks to on. Those were nice, weren't they? Yeah. Right, stick some hair on him now. Alright.
Most of our children are very backward. There's nothing wrong with their intelligence, it's just that school was a totally irrelevant experience. So when they come to us, on the whole, we tend not to send them to school at the crisis refuge, because it's very important not just to bung them into a local school, where they then fail again, coming from the chaos of the centre, but to keep them within our play school situation, where they begin to make relationships with adults who are very sympathetic and who really understand them. I have quite a lot of teachers on my staff and psychologists.
Pretty, isn't it?
Now, in the community homes, they're much more ready and they do go into the local schools and they settle fairly quickly. But this is after quite a period of time, and the child can actually comprehend the world around him because he or she has got away from the violence. But it's absolutely hopeless for the children within a school setting when life at home is a nightmare and the child who sits at the desk knows that he's different to everybody else who's sitting next to him, and he's reading Janet and John about Mummy and Daddy and Dog Spot when his father's murdering his mother at home.
Wipers on the bus goes swish, wash, swish, swish, wash, swish, swish, wash, swish. The wipers on the bus go swish, wash, swish, all day long.
You make that noise. All day long, the dog on the bus goes moo, moo, moo.
The behaviourist would say that human beings have to learn violence from some person or some source. And for most children, the pattern of male behaviour that they learn is the pattern of behaviour they see in their father. And a child often takes after this pattern, and one can see children behaving in a very similar way to the ways in which their parents have behaved. Now, it is possible for a child to reject his father as a model of behaviour. It is very difficult, but it is possible. But even if the child does manage to reject his father, they have got to find some other male that they can use as a model. Now, at Chiswick, there is a very interesting thing going on, and the role of the male playgroup leaders I see as being extremely important indeed, because they are in fact the selected male surrogate fathers. The children are being invited to learn patterns of non-violent male behaviour. Now, this is very difficult for the children, because in the first place they have got to unlearn a lot of patterns of behaviour and have got to relearn new non-violent patterns of behaviour. And therefore one can't expect results quickly. It's going to take time. In many cases it's going to take many years to be able to change these patterns of behaviour that the children are learning. And one has seen evidence of the children first coming into Chiswick of being quite violent and out of control. And it's very encouraging to see, after months of being in Chiswick and being subjected to non-violent male influences, how these children's pattern of behaviour can change. But the sad thing is that in some of the children the pattern has been set, and it has been going on too long for it to change. And in many cases even though they are still only children, we have already with us the battering husbands of the next generation. And unfortunately, the same thing really occurs in the females. They learn patterns of behaviour, and we have, at Chiswick, a number of the younger female children who we hope their patterns of behaviour can be changed. But some of the older ones, unfortunately, there is a very good chance, from what we have seen, that they, in their turn, will become the battered wives of the next generation. It would appear that one of the elements for violence to start is that the woman must be trapped in the relationship, and there must be some sort of element of permanency about it. For most, of course, a pregnancy or the appearance of children was the factor that locked the two together, or at least made it very difficult for the woman to be able to run away. It was no chance finding that the violence often did not start until the first child was either conceived or had been born. Psychiatrists know that jealousy, or morbid jealousy as it's sometimes called, is a very dangerous symptom, a symptom that can often lead to physical violence and even, unfortunately, on occasions to murder. Alcohol and alcoholism can produce this jealous type situation in a man, but it also can be part of his personality.
And was this the only time you went to hospital?
Yeah.
What sort of other injuries?
Bruises and other such things, you know, just general pain.
Yeah. How long were you with this man, with your husband?
Altogether 5 to 6 years.
Yeah. And how old were you when you got married?
16 and a half.
There can be no solution to the problem of marital violence that does not include some form of help for the men. The problem is, though, that the vast majority of men do not see that they need any help, and they only seek help when they're cornered, or that they feel that it is going to be an adjunct to getting their wife to go back into a relationship with them. Even if you do corner the men into seeking help, one has got to be certain that there is some form of help available. And the unfortunate thing is that at the moment there is no fully effective way of treating violent men. Most of the things that we do are just scratching round the periphery of the subject, and certainly psychiatry has not got the answer to this, and very few of the violent situations can be even ameliorated by any psychiatric means. Certainly if the man has a drinking problem and he's only violent when he is drunk, provided that he can be persuaded to seek some help for his alcoholism, and it is possible to do something in helping him in this score and stopping him from drinking, then obviously one is going to cut the violence out in this particular situation. But it is sad to say that where violence is of the major type, there is little that can be done in types of intervention. The conventional forms of marital therapy are all right where there has been very minor violence, but the major types of violence that one has seen in the women of Chiswick would be totally unamenable to this type of therapy.
It's upset her seeing you, and it's upset her knowing he's there. And, you know, I think let her work it out in her own mind.
Yeah.
Rather than feel that she's been pressured into making a decision like that.
Give it next week, then, she. Next Saturday.
I think we'd better not to make a specific appointment, rather that she can contact you. Can she get you on the phone?
Yeah, I'll phone Millie.
Yeah?
Look, if you can phone Millie and just say, well, I've got the phone number of this place, I believe. I had it before. Can I phone you?
You phone me.
Yeah.
I phoned here. Look, I'll tell you what, I phoned here on Monday. Now you tell me what time Monday.
I haven't got my appointment till Tuesday. Doesn't matter what time Monday, I'll be here all day.
Monday.
Look, I
And I think she'll
phoned
be
you.
able to work it out for her own satisfaction.
Okay.
Because I think Saturday's a bit too soon really to
Yeah.
make a decision like that.
All right, I phone you Monday and you tell me when, and I'll give you my word, it'll be as long as you say whatever time, and we'll be back here with the kids.
Yeah,
Feel better with that
You
arrangement?
feel all right now?
Yeah.
Sure.
You feel better with that
Yeah, I
arrangement?
feel better now, as long as
Yeah.
I know that, you know, she will let him see him, and as I say, I'm not going to
Well,
persuade
tell him
him.
that when I go in for the divorce, I'll make it that he's, as long as he does what I want, then he can have access. But it won't be every week. I mean, I couldn't stand that.
It'd be
It'll be something that'll be sorted out.
Yeah.
We'll sort it out mutually, but I won't take the kids right away from him then.
All right, okay.
But that's all. But he's lost me completely. You've got to tell him that and make sure. Tell him not to bother about no more debts. Go and spend it on what he likes. I'm not interested. And I'm not interested in no council flat because he can have it. I've got to make a life of my own.
Well, I see an awful lot of the husbands, many of them asking for help, many of them admitting that they're violent, that all that's ever offered to them is tranquilizers and half an hour with a psychiatrist who says it's useless because he has a personality disorder. And we're beginning a program now of contacting the husbands who are less violent. These are not the men, for instance, who've done time for armed robbery. These are men who are usually simply violent towards their wives. They've got enough self-control to simply attack at home, not all round. We need to get them together into a male group to talk about their problems, and we've just had the first group meeting and 4 men came. 4 doesn't sound very much, but it's like a miracle for us, and we're going to work and expand on that project, not saying if you come to the group you will get your wife back, which in fact would be a lot of the motivation for getting there, but all right, if your wife doesn't want to go back to you, that's one relationship you've messed up. What about your next one?
Leander, sit nicely. Put one on the baby's plate. Here, darling. Will you get from that baby light the candle? Yes. Your surprise is coming. What do we sing now? Hang on. Happy birthday to you. Oh, wait a minute. Happy birthday to you. 3 cheers. Put him in front of him. There you are, Kevin. Now, no, just a minute. Wait a minute. Now you've got to blow them out all together. Well done! Hooray!
One of the tragic things is watching this cycle of, in a violent family, the way society very often solved the problem was to take the children from the mother, who did want her kids, put them into care, which then made the mother single homeless. And then the children going through the whole cycle of care, back into violence, more children, more violence, and it went round and round and round. And our argument is not to put the children into care, but to put the mother and the children into community care for a while, till she sorts out the worst of her problems and can get back on her feet. And slowly you'll see her ready to make the next move, which is into our second stage houses, which are much smaller, groups of 5 or 6, with perhaps 15 children.
Please, Kim.
Oh, God, in the bedroom, in his handbag, please. In the community house, we live as one big family. You start getting to the stage where you start trusting people.
you know, and you're able to relate to people, feelings, and you start feeling that you're a human being again. If I hadn't have got out of where I was, I would have been dead. But now, I mean, when you start getting bits and pieces, you start building, and you're looking forward to the day that you move out and you get a place of your own, and you know it's not going to get smashed up. Then go up. Even now, with some things, especially with the boys, you know, it's very hard to turn around and say to them, no, you can't go such a place, because it's the sort of things where their father should be able to turn around and explain to them why they can't go without somebody with them. You know, like fishing. The bigger boy goes, he loves it. The little one wants to go with him. But it's very hard to make him see that he's a lot younger than his brother. And it's a big responsibility to ask the older one to look after him.
No, it's so funny, because when we first went up, there was just me and Margaret, right, and they come down later on.
Who's that?
Junior.
The three fellas.
And Margaret's taken me round, right, and I never fell down once. So after that I could go on my own.
With the two teenage girls, I find it very hard at times. They come home and they feel, I feel that they feel that I've let them down in one way. Although they say, you know, that I haven't. But to me, I feel that there's something missing. They should be able to come home and talk to both parents about their boyfriends and their friends at school, their problems at school. But instead of that, you find deep down there thinking, well, I'm the only girl in my class who hasn't got a dad. You know. And some decisions I do find hard, because the girls are so grown up for their age. I find it very hard to, if I didn't have the other mothers here to talk to, but you can sit down and discuss a problem and you get other people's view, I don't honestly think I could cope half the time. When we first came down here, I mean, we worked very hard. This house was just, it was a derelict dump, you might as well say. There was nothing here. We lived on orange boxes. And, no, we sat on orange boxes. You know, we had one table and about 6 orange boxes for about 6 to 9 months. And we were going to go into bed and breakfast, but we didn't, because the workmen, we thought, while we was in bed and breakfast, they wouldn't do much. So we moved straight in, you know, and just got on with them. We helped them do this, that and everything else. We'd done all our own decorating and painting except for the stairs and that. And I mean, all the time you're working doing that sort of thing, you might as well say you're standing on your own 2 feet. I mean, you can walk down the street now without having to keep looking over your shoulder, all that sort of thing. It just changes.
Did you have any trouble from the neighbours and things like that?
Yeah, they used to use this as a rubbish dump here, because there was no brick wall there. That was all down. And to start off with, first of all, we had the police come round the first day we came in, saying that, thinking we were squatters. And then a couple of days after we was there, some woman round the back here had all her washing taken off the line. Of course, they came to us. The kids was fighting out here, admitting some of our children was out there, but it was our kids that was causing the trouble. You know, they just never left us alone. They didn't give us time, you know, before they kept picking on us, really. Jealousy, that's what I say. Oh, it's very nice now. It takes a long while to get accepted, you know, from the women round here. It has. It's taken nearly 2 years. But now we can walk down the street and people ask us how we are and, you know, how we're getting on and things like that. They wouldn't have anything to do with the man. It's
it's a big gap, you know, when they've come from that sort of background. It takes them a long time, even just to talk to a man, or to go up and ask, even at school, if it's a man teacher. I found that they got on very well with the women teachers, but used to have problems with the men. There was that distrust, that fear.
We were walking across the road. No, it was just me and you. We were walking across the road.
Fucking wet.
They
are.
I think then is when it hits you that you're on your own with the children, and what a big responsibility you have got, because you've got more time to sit and think, you know, of the future, of how you're going to cope. I mean, it's going to be even harder when we do go out into our own places. But then, by then, we'll be well enough and able enough to cope, I think.
The basis of this problem is that if the woman manages to end her relationship with a violent man, she has a lot of problems to face. On average, she's aged 31, and she has 3 children, and often these children are very disturbed. Any woman at this age looking for a new relationship would have problems, whether she came from a violent relationship or a non-violent relationship. She would have difficulty in finding a new partner. But the woman from the violent relationship has got even more difficulties. She may come from a subculture that's partly been engendered by her marriage to a man who's a heavy drinker, where her only form of social life and outlet is in heavy drinking circles, where she is likely to find men very similar to her husband. Now, when the relationship breaks up, she continues in the same social circle that she has left off. And this one did see, to some extent, at Chiswick, that when the women had broken the relationship, they were seeking their social enjoyment away from the refuge in this type of environment. And so often they were finding for themselves violent men again. In fact, 25% of the women that I saw had been previously married or in a cohabitation to a violent man, that is previous to the relationship that they were ending. So this was their second relationship, often a violent one. And they claimed that in 37% of cases, the men that they'd had relationships with, they found out either at the time or later that he had been involved in a previous relationship that either had been a marriage or a cohabitation. Often they found out that this relationship was violent, but they found that out too late.
We feel that should refuge be provided for a small number of women in each area, nothing will have been achieved, because a small number of women have always been helped. After all, there was a paper on wife torture in England 100 years ago, and a select committee, and a report, and nothing happened. This time, we're not going to settle for the politics of half a loaf. A squatter had come in to see me and told me about this place and said it had 46 private suites, which seemed far too good to miss. And we moved in because it had been derelict for a long time, nobody else wanted it, and we needed it. And it was a terrific exercise of planning. It involved the whole community, and it's been a very good and healthy growth of on our part.
Did you find it off-putting, the fact that the place was near derelict?
No, because most of our places are. This place will grow around the group that lives in it. Our problem is money. It would be nice if we had the money to do it in a properly planned way. But as it slowly gets more and more comfortable, the mothers will become more comfortable with it. One of the things Chiswick has always said publicly, our address is public, our phone number is public, and the door is open day or night. And women turn up at any time, by any method. Doesn't matter how they find their way to us, they just come. And everybody moves up. And I think the power of the group as they grow and they share their experiences and they become confident enough. I mean, it may be that we have no property being offered to us and we have to do a squat. And when they're ready and they want to do it, then they do it.
Although the community regrets the need to squat, until more funds and houses are made available, they will continue to do so to provide care and protection for the undiminished, if anything increasing number of women and children who turn up at their door.
We are demanding, we feel quite reasonably, rational changes in thinking, in policy, in attitudes towards people, and we will go on demanding them, even if it means breaking the law.
7 of the 22 second-stage community houses have been privately donated. The rest are squats.
The general public needs to play its part. It first needs to be informed, and public opinion needs to be mobilized, so that both males and females do not look upon the man who beats his wife as being a he-man or a man who is standing up for male rights or is symbolic of male superiority. There must be a very subtle but definite disapproval of this. Well, I think education has got a part to play, not only in schools, but schools can certainly play their part. I think first we must really attack to some degree sex education. Sex education must go beyond just an education on the pure biology and mechanics of sex. It must go on to a teaching and understanding of human relationships, which a marital situation is all about. It was that lack of understanding of human relationships that, in my opinion, is the fault of many of these violent situations. Medicine and the social services must also change their attitudes and stand at blame in part. The survey showed that many of the cases of battered wives were missed by the professionals, and perhaps even worse still, had been misdiagnosed as being something else and given a sort of a diagnosis of depression. But recognition on its own is not enough. There needs to be a number of well-staffed primary hostels, and I do not really think there needs to be all that many of them. It wouldn't matter if women had to travel a long way to go to one of these hostels. If they have been really subjected to physical violence, it would be much safer for them to travel a long distance. And there needs to be linked with the primary hostels a chain of second stage hostels where the women can go after the initial exploration, the initial phases, where they're going to receive rehabilitation in learning to be able to cope with their way of life and be able to cope with their children.
Yes, I think when a woman comes through the door and I talk to her, she knows that I've experienced the fear that she's experienced. She knows also, because we talk about it, what it does to children and how damaging it is, because it damaged me so badly, and my brother and sister. And I think she knows that I understand that whatever she's doing, whatever mess she's in, whatever state she's in, that I have the time and the patience not to cut her off, but to listen. Because for all of us who've been through this experience, although we're all uniquely individual, the patterns are exactly the same. The terrible fear of not knowing what this man in the house is going to do next, the waiting for him to come home, the silence when he comes home while you try and gauge on his face what he might do. And I think she understands that I understand, and that's a first step into safety for her.
Would you like to talk about your experiences?
Well, I think it's very hard as a child, especially if you're living with a mother, like mine, who was very, very immature, who married because my father, because no one else would marry her, sensing that she was a person who was very badly damaged by her own childhood. And I think that she never spoke to us about what was happening. There was a kind of conspiracy within the family that whatever he did, she never admitted. And perhaps if she'd spoken to us and explained that he'd come from a family of 17, a very poor family and a very violent family, we would have had a much better understanding of him. Although even as a child you're very defensive about your father. Even if he is somebody that everybody else steers clear of, you feel a tremendous amount of compassion and pity for him, even when you're very young. And I think that it was very difficult for us because we were moving around a lot, because he was in the Foreign Office. And as we moved, one became aware, quite early on, people stayed away from us. They didn't come to our house, because he very quickly could get rid of people by behaving aggressively. I never saw him beat her. I heard her cry a lot behind doors. I was so frightened of him that most of what happened when he was with us is like a very bad dream. For a long period of time, when he was abroad, we lived in boarding schools and holiday homes, and I was very happy in the holiday home. It was a very chaotic place, but it was a very safe place, because most of the children in that holiday home were there because their parents had broken down, and they had no relations. See, we had no relations, because violent families lose their ties. So a lot of the children within that home situation were also from those kind of backgrounds. And this is where I learnt a lot about children, because many of the boys there were very aggressive and violent. And when we finally did live together, when I was about 16, my mother became very ill with cancer, and she was dying, which is when my father was at his worst, because obviously he was very, very distressed. In his own way, he loved her passionately, even though he ill-treated her and us. He didn't understand what children were. We were a great threat to him. He hated us, actually, in his own way, and he tormented us in a lot of very complicated ways, in that he was very sexually aggressive towards us. He, not understanding children, when we were 16 and were living with him, he would insist that it was his house, therefore he had the right to walk into the bathroom if you were in the bath, and we were from a convent, and it was very threatening for us. He also reckoned that he had the right to totally control and dominate our lives. We couldn't go out, couldn't have boyfriends, couldn't wear makeup. And we lived in a kind of unreal world at home that didn't match anything outside. And no adult would ever let you off the hook by admitting they knew what was happening to you. And it really culminated when she died in a home for incurables. And he brought the body home in an open coffin, and he put it in the dining room. And it was very hot summer. And we were very frightened, because we felt he'd really gone off his head at that stage, which he had. And we were living in this house with a very old housekeeper, who was a marvellous old woman, because she didn't leave us. And that first night that he brought the coffin home, he made us look. That was very frightening for us, because we'd never seen a dead body before, and we didn't know what it would look like, and didn't realize that, the nostrils are stuffed with cotton wool. And then slowly, as the days went by, and he wouldn't bury her, the body changed and decomposed. But he made us look almost daily. And at night we'd lie upstairs, the three of us, my sister and my brother, in different rooms, and we'd hear him moving around downstairs, and we never knew what he was doing. We were terrified he was going to take her out of the coffin, and we'd just lay awake, and we'd come down in the morning, and he'd insist that we had to eat breakfast, or whatever meal it was, and he'd put the dining table in the hall outside, but because it was hot, the smell was getting very bad, and if we didn't eat, he'd then get very angry with us, and we were very frightened all the time this was going on. After 4 days, he called the doctor in to check that she was really dead. This was our family doctor that had known us for a long time and had known my mother and had operated on her. He came in, he went into this room, and he walked out, and the only thing he said is that it shouldn't happen to a dog, and then he left us. And I went to the vicar, who knew us very well as a family, and begged him to get my father to bury the body. And he said he was very sorry, he couldn't interfere. I went everywhere in that village that knew us well, and nobody came near the house in all that time. Even the woman who brought us up in the holiday home came to pay her last respects. She knew what was happening, but she stayed away. And the only thing the village did, as a mark of respect for my mother, was not to attend the funeral when he finally buried her.
So it tied up for me when that first woman said to me, no one would help me, and I knew what she meant.
I mean, every time there's a knock on the door, you jump. And it's not only, you begin to forget. I mean, after a while, after you sit and talk, and I mean, 2 years I've been away now, and I can't forget. Not that, I mean, you can have a good hiding, your face is black and blue, you look in the mirror and you're black. A couple of weeks after, all the bruises have gone. But when you look at other parts of you and you've got great big scars, it'll never go, not while you can see all the scars that you've got. And I've got a lot.
I don't think any of us will ever forget what's happened. You can live in a world, you can push it back, you know, push it out of your mind, but it's always there. I mean, you can be really enjoying yourself, and then just a silly little thing. Somebody might just light a cigarette up, and the angle that they've lit it, the cigarette is facing you. It can fetch things back.
Oh, a cigarette.
Because when you've been burnt with a cigarette, you've had them stubbed out on you. You know, it's little things like that. It can come back as quick as lightning.